As you can see on the sidebar, Chelsea Handler is currently trending because she put together a video called Just Another Day in the Life of a Childless Woman. The propaganda is unending, trying to convince people not to have kids. Well, you know what's funny is I'm about to turn 37 in about 3 weeks. I have no kids. And let me just put it this way. My full intention is to have kids, and, I don't want to air my personal business. But the fascinating thing is that I'm surprised I even made it this long without having kids, because it's not normal, at least as to how the past generations handled things. For my parents, for instance, probably should have had kids 15 years ago. And I think about that quite a bit. I'm like, man, 37. If I had a kid when I was 25, I'd have a 12-year-old kid right now. Isn't that crazy? They could be mowing the lawn and doing chores for us. There's a lot of work involved, and it's not easy. But this idea that you shouldn't have kids is wrong. Let me show you what Chelsea Handler says in her video. And I want to start right now by saying, Chelsea, I wonder what it will be like for you when you're 70. What will it be like in that sterile nursing home? I don't know. She's rich, so maybe she won't go there. But what about the rest of you? Here's her video.
I wake up at 6.
Let me start over.
This is a day in the life of a childless woman. I wake up at 6 a.m. I remember that I have no kids to take to school, so I take an edible, masturbate, and go back to sleep. I wake up at 12:30 p.m. and get ready for a busy day of doing whatever the I feel like. I put on my most impractical and stylish shoes since I won't be chasing a child around the grocery store. I go to my fave spot in Paris to grab a croissant. I do a meditation sesh on the plane since I have no screaming kids, allowing me all the time in the world to become enlightened. The weightlessness of my existence has granted me superhuman powers. I teleport myself back home. Then I get ready for a night out with whatever hot guy I met on Raya that morning. I call up a babysitter and tell her that I don't need her since I still don't have kids. Now it's time for a workout, so I hit Mount Everest for a quick climb. I invent a time machine, go back in time, and kill Hitler.
Freeze, you bastard!
It's amazing what you can do when you have this much free time. And that's a day in the life of a childless woman.
The funny thing is not what her joke is. It's that the first point about waking up at 6:30 and doing nothing but, pleasuring yourself with drugs and self-stimulation is, do you have no job, lady? Oh. The real story should be a day in the life of an individual who is wealthy and has no family. Sure. DINK. You ever hear that term? Dual income, no kids. And everybody talks about how nice it must be. But the theme of today's podcast and all the segments I've done is self-gratification, sacrificing long-term gains for short-term pleasure. That's what we have. So the point I often make to individuals like this, I want you to think about what it's going to be like for yourself when you're 70 years old, when your bowels begin to fail you, when your bladder is loose and you become incontinent. Who's going to be there for you? Who's going to hold your hand? I want you to imagine what it's going to be like when you're sitting in a cold, sterile hospital bed, not knowing what's wrong and what's causing that abdominal pain. The nurse walks in and hands you a chart and says, take a look at this and then sign here. And you say, I guess, nurse, what's wrong? She says, just typical follow-up. We'll figure things out. You look around and there's nobody. You can turn the TV on. The doctor comes in and says, is there anyone who can come and take care of you? And you say, no, I have no family. And the doctor says, okay. And then he leaves. And then you sit there and wonder, as the pain grows, what do you do? Man, it's a brutal feeling being in the hospital by yourself without family. It really is, because it's happened to me before. For people who have moved out, and even for a young, at the time I think I was like 28, and I was in the hospital, and I was by myself. And what could I do? I was by myself in New York City. Was currently not dating one at the time, didn't have anyone to call and ask to come hang out, stay with me as I was experiencing extreme pains, and we don't know what's going to happen. And I had a kidney stone, by the way. That's what it was. But it's just, while I didn't think I was going to die or anything, it really is a particularly nightmarish experience to be in a hospital by yourself. No one knows you. No one cares about you. They'll do their best for you, but you're on your own. And that was a harsh slap in the face which says to me, man, you really got to have a family. And there'll be someone there to be looking at you in the event something bad happens. You want to know how brutal it is? How brutal it can really be? You know, we have this story about the lady from MSNBC. She took a hiatus for a month because she got a cold. And the common cold caused, apparently, pericarditis and myocarditis. Her heart's fluttering. Fortunately, I believe she's married. I don't think she has kids. I'm not sure. She might. Imagine this. You have a family and you go to the bathroom and then you pass out, hit your head and hit the floor. 10 minutes goes by. Nobody knows where you went because it's only been 10 minutes. By the time someone says, where's mom or where's dad? They go up and knock on the door and no one answers in the bathroom. They open the door and find you face down, dead, in a pool of your own blood. It's a shocking scenario, but it happens. I don't think it's going to happen to you. I'm not saying to be scared and to live in fear like this. My point is simply, even with people who care about you around, they may not make it in time when you slip and fall and have an accident. And those things can happen. Or if you're like working on the car by yourself and the jack gives out and the car pins you and no one's around and you can't yell and you're being asphyxiated. Those are horrifying things. And that's why I always try to make sure that people know where I am. I know where they are and what the plans are, because it's really a terrifying idea that, but for a few minutes, someone could completely lose their lives. There's a story about this young high school athlete playing tennis. His heart stopped, cardiac arrest. You hear that story? Hits the ground. They run over and they perform CPR and they save his life. It was a 50-50 shot. If that kid was training by himself, he'd be dead. His heart stopped. He's dead. But someone was around to help him. My point is simply, your chance of survival is higher when there are people around with you. But more importantly, I'll just put it this way. The terrifying feeling of being convalesced with no one around to help you is not so much that you might die alone, but that you're just alone and it doesn't feel good. So when I see videos like this of Chelsea Handler waving, childless and all that, maybe she'll find a nice boo who will be with her and she won't have any kids. Maybe she can't have kids. And that's the one thing I will say to anybody who can't have kids. Yeah, I feel for you, man. You know, people who want kids but can't have them. You understand more than anyone exactly what many of these women who are bragging about not having kids are giving up and what you yearn for, men or women. You know, I'm watching Yellowstone. Spoiler alert, you've been warned, because I'm on like season 3, so this is from a few years ago. But we learned that one of the characters underwent a forced sterilization when she was a teenager, because she did not know when she went for an abortion, they would sterilize her, and now she can't have kids. That's a crazy thought. That after billions of years of reproduction and evolution, it all ends with you. I have to imagine for those that can't have kids, it must suck. Some people choose not to have kids and get vasectomies or get their tubes tied or whatever, and that's fine if they choose. But I would only warn for these people who are bragging about it, I would only warn for those who are encouraging others to do it, to consider what that means when you're 70 in a sterile room and they say you have only a few more moments. Is there anyone who can come? Is there anyone who you want to call? And you say there's no one. And they say, okay. And then they walk out of the room. And there you are by yourself, wondering what you did. As the saying goes, no one on their deathbed says, I wish I worked more. Everybody says to themselves, so they say, that they wished they spent more time with family. But right now, what are we seeing? People don't have families. No families at all. What will you leave behind? Why are you here? I suppose you don't need to leave anything behind. I suppose you're here for no reason. And that's it. So I don't know what else to tell you. I think for most people, it will be a terrifying rude awakening when you are entering your 40s with no family, with maybe just some cats or some dogs wondering what the point of your life is and what are you even doing and who are you here for and what are you working for? And then you find out it's nothing. Self-gratification is nothing. Nothing. They say that most people die around the age of retirement. And they say that those who live to be over 100 do so because one of the contributing factors is purpose. But what purpose do you have if you live only to pleasure yourself? I suppose that's it. But at a certain point, don't you just get bored and say, what is this? Maybe you need to live for someone else and for something else. Maybe that's the message we should be sending to counter this propaganda. And maybe that's the message I'm sending to you today. I'll leave it there. Next segment's coming up tonight at 8 p.m. over at youtube.com/TimcastIRL. We're going to talk about this toxic chemical spill with some politicians. So stick around. It'll be interesting. And we'll see you all then.